you guys are right. This is being politicized to a heavy degree, but it's not enough for us to say, you guys are bad for politicizing this.
Imagine if these assholes put as much energy into bringing awareness to the disease instead of raging against a fictional work of art that was not vindictive in any way towards people with this disease.
What you just said there about being a slave, it's like, and the way you explained it, you say what to do, I do it, reminds me very much of a military.
That's elite. The player is not elite. We look at them elite because we're jealous of them. Welcome everybody to the ever-evolving truth.
It took me 4 pages to realize that it was J.E. and not J.G. I'm like, who the fuck is J.G. flying on this plane all the time?
But doctors are already subject to malpractice in every other thing they do. So the idea of a doctor being scared to do the right thing medically, I would call that questionable if they have to do this on a regular basis with fear of malpractice suits to begin with.
Yeah, but they're not afraid to go to jail because they made a medical decision.
So that's totally different.
Right. I'll add one thing quick before I go to Mounts, just to respond to that, Leah, based on the argument. The reason it would need to be in there, in my opinion, is because a doctor who might be getting $1,000 under the table or whatever the figure would be, and says, "Yeah, I do think there was a justified reason for performing this abortion, and I did it for that reason." If you don't hold them to the task of being able to provide, and if they're good doctors and they're doing the right thing, they should be able to very easily provide a medical defense. I'm not saying that they need to go in front of pass some ridiculous set of judgment on this.
Welcome everybody to the ever-evolving truth. We are here with our very first live of season 4 forever, and we're going to do things a little bit different here today. Change up the format a little bit. Mr. Sterner and I are going to go head-to-head in a vicious debate that could end up in one of us punching each other and the other one crying. We don't know. But the idea here is that the two of us said something that kind of contradicted each other over the course of maybe 1 or 2 episodes or several times within several episodes. And what we want to do is, every once in a while, put those two ideas to the test and put them against each other. So that's kind of what we're doing here today. So we have some people joining us. We're excited about that. What's going to happen here in this case, since it's a debate between me and Sterner, Leah and Mounts are going to be off screen mostly, but they're going to be fact checking us as we go. So if we say something that sounds a little fishy or stupid, they're going to pop in. They have the controls. They can come in and out as they please. They're going to pop in and they're going to call us out on it if necessary. And we can kind of check in with them throughout the segment too to see if there's anything important that needs to be added too. Did I mostly cover that, Greg?
Well, I just want to say that they've both been paid very well, and they better remember where their loyalties lie during this whole thing.
Well, it doesn't matter how much you paid them. I am Jeff Bergh, the master debater.
The what now?
The master debater. You heard me.
Okay.
I'll do Jeff. Mounts, you want to do Sterner?
Yeah, you know who I like better, so I'll take
You are welcome to fact check each of us. But before we get started, I did want to go over just a couple housekeeping things here. In case you haven't seen, we haven't really posted it a lot yet, but our official White Horse webpage is done officially. Krista Sterner.
Start rumors now, Jeff.
Right, well, that's what we're all about, right? They're flying anyway. It doesn't matter. Krista did a wonderful job on this. I have my screen that I'm going to share here and show it to you. Mainly, I wanted to show you guys the swag shop. People ask us all the time, can they purchase podcast stuff, with the logos, and we're going to work on t-shirts and stuff like that. But we have some in here already that we've designed ourselves. Some long sleeve tees, 3/4 hats, a lot of phone cases, which we find pretty cool. But it's really simple to use. If you did want to order something, all you have to do is click on what you want to order, and it pops up here. And
I love that so much. That one's sick. I love it.
This is my favorite one. You probably noticed the new logos too. Again, all Krista. You select color, select size, add to cart, and then literally, you know, just like you would in any kind of shopping situation, you would just put in your payment at, you know, a shipping address. The cool thing about this shop is that everything is free shipping. So the shipping's on us. So feel free to, we have people ask us all the time, how can we support the shows? How can we support the cause? Feel free. We would love for you guys to support us that way. You know, sure, you can just give us money if you want to, but this way, if you pay for it, we get a little bit of money, you get something cool to wear. And even if people don't know what it means, I mean, I think the logos look great. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll have some of the stuff that we've said and mentioned on the show, we're going to turn into shirts as we go along. So that's exciting. Also, I wanted to bring up, we want to do this more often, but after we release an episode, we want to start within that week, after a couple days after the episode drops, we want to do a poll to kind of see what you guys think, and we would love for you to participate this in as much as possible. The latest poll was a simple question: do you think abortion should be legal? And 82% of you think that it should. 18% think it should not be. And that was, you know, roughly 100 votes, I believe it was. So a good sample size there, and we really appreciate you participating in that. And even further, you know, the branding and the kind of message that we're going after here is we want to, and this is kind of like personal to me, we kind of want to not force people, but we want to encourage people to bring the debate that takes place on Facebook pages, personal Facebook pages every day, bring it to the Ever-Evolving Truth. Have at it on our page. Argue with people, say what you need to say, get that out, and leave your Facebook page for, you know, just personal friendships and things like that. I personally know that I argue with people on my Facebook page. It would be a great idea for me to argue with people on the Ever-Evolving Truth page and then go back to my personal Facebook page and just enjoy the friendships that I've created over the years. So that's kind of like our goal going forward here with this. Anybody have anything to say about that?
Well, I think that I think it is a very good notion to let's create a spot. It's already there. The Ever-Evolving Truth page. We are purposely talking about issues and polarizing questions that the nation is divided on, but we're doing it in such a way that you know, Jeff and I are not of the same political mindset. We might be in some areas, but I have very different opinions than Jeff. I have very different opinions than Leah. Mounts and Leah disagree. Mounts and Jeff disagree. We have Amanda and Krista live to keep us in check while we're going over these issues, but we can create an environment where, look, everybody can get a say. Okay, we don't have to get nasty. We don't have to get go for the low road. We can just have a reasonable debate. A lot of our listeners and people that have been on the page have said very well thought out, well explained pieces on the issue at hand. So we would like that to continue. This page used to be a haven for the lowest level of sort of like drama, sort of the low-hanging fruit drama. And while that's fun and all that for people to look at, this is real stuff that we're talking about here. So let's raise the bar and have a place of common discourse where everybody gets a say. That's what this show is. That's what this show has evolved into, no pun intended. So let's try to make that a home for good debate.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Might be the only thing we agree on tonight.
That might be true.
I peg this. If this is a David versus Goliath.
Yeah, but who's David and who's Goliath?
Well, Sterner is the well-trained professional debater here. He's a philosopher. He has done this many times. He's been forced to debate, even on topics that, even on the side that he might not agree with. He's been forced to make that debate.
And he's good at that too.
He's really good. I'm just a lowly Facebook
Leah, you're earning your money already.
The cards are stacked against your old friend Pook here, and if I win this debate, and we'll ask the audience who won it. We'll ask them tonight, see if we can get any answers, and if we this will be our poll this week. I promise you that. After the episode comes out Tuesday, everybody gets a chance to listen or watch. We will, a couple days later, we'll do the poll, and I want you guys to be honest. If I win this debate, it'll be the greatest upset in the history of America. Maybe the world.
It'll be a screw job right out of pro wrestling.
Okay, so we're going to get rid of Leah and Mounts here for now. You guys can pop in anytime if you feel we need to be checked. And Mr. Sterner, I think I'm going to let you go first. How do you feel about you? You want to go first with your? What we're going to start here with is opening arguments. We're going to plead our cases here, kind of give you an idea of where we're going to take this and what we hope to discuss throughout the next hour or so. And I'm inclined to let you go first.
Yeah. So here's the thing. For anyone that is just tuning in and has no idea what we're about to talk about, on our, I believe it was our Teat trial of Jeffrey Epstein episode, Jeff made the comment that the most dangerous threat facing America today is conspiracy theorists and the misinformation that they put out there, which has been shown in some instances to create violence among the populace. I said at the time when he made that statement, I said I very much disagree, strongly disagree, and I felt that extreme far radical left forces that are gaining a foothold in our country, and they're doing it in very, very sneaky ways that you got to really be watching to see. I think they present the most dangerous threat, just because, if for no other reason, the ideology that they espouse, which I'll break it down to, we have an agenda we want to see come to fruition in a utopian view of what America can be, but in order to do that, we need to control what people can say and think. And if you are not scared of a statement like that, then you may not be familiar with regimes across time. If you look at the only regimes, socialist, regimes, far left regimes, I should say, where thought and speech was completely controlled to make sure that the program was followed, any one of them that has caught enough traction to become a global power or a global force of some renown has resulted in the deaths of millions and millions of people. Every single one. Okay? So, if you can look at North Korea, you can look at the Soviet Union, you can look at Maoist China. Okay, these are very good examples of this ideology taken to its fullest extent, and the result of that was the deaths of millions of people. So while I will, I believe Jordan Peterson, Leah's favorite, I think he has called this strong manning an argument. I believe it might have actually been Brett Weinstein's phrase. So what I'm going to do to start off is I'm not really debating Jeff's point about the danger of conspiracy theorists. I actually know a lot about conspiracy theory, and I've gotten wrapped up in a couple. It wrapped up pretty deep, actually. One thing to point out there, which we can talk about later, is that it seemed like the darker place I was in life at the moment, the more I was open to things that that I could be a truth seeker of some kind and really get to the bottom of the bullshit that we were being fed. It's easier to do that when you already feel like you're getting screwed around, maybe by life and maybe by society. My whole thing is Jeff's argument about the danger of conspiracies. I'm probably going to agree with him on every point. The only point of difference for me is that in the grand scheme, in the hierarchy of a far left power taking hold and pushing an ideology that the entire country has got to get with the program on, that is at the top. That's the whole machine. And the conspiracy theorists, who are part of the propaganda aspect of that overarching power structure, are very dangerous, but they're like third level bitch compared to the real power at the top. And a conspiracy theorist, to stay in business, has always got to be against something. So you find that often they don't even have a true cause that they're fighting for. They're simply going to push the opposite of whatever the power is. Or if their side has won, they are going to then talk about even more shadowy elements at the top. Okay, the Satan worshiping far left cabal of child eaters and pedophiles. That's one group that you might point to and say the only thing standing between us and those people taking hold is Donald Trump. Or you might say, there's conspiracies on the left, or I'm sorry, on the right. The alt-right conspiracies, the thing that Jones is constantly talking about. Lots of misinformation, but there is also plenty of that on the left side. okay, talking about what Trump will do to stay in office, and if he loses the election, he's not going to leave, and here's how he's going to do it, and he's going to create martial law in the country so an election can't take place, and he can just permanently reign as the president king. These are left conspiracies as well. So while they are spreaders of misinformation, they are verbal vermin, as far as I'm concerned. They are dangerous. Alex Jones specifically, and you won't find many like this, but Alex Jones specifically was responsible for the shooting up of the pizzeria Comet Ping Pong as part of this conspiracy theory that these, Satan-worshiping evil cabal of left extremists who were really trying to take over the world and wanted their pedophile rings to be filtered through this comic ping pong. This crazy person, believed what Jones was saying, and he went up and shot the place up. Now, while I believe that's a dangerous thing and misinformation is a dangerous thing, it does not compare to these ideologies being left to their fullest extent to be played out as they would otherwise and lead to the deaths of millions of people, which they have several different times. Okay, Stalin killed 20 million of his own people. Okay, Mao, even in the early parts of taking over and instituting Maoism, 30 some odd million people were killed in the early going of that, before he went and destroyed all the culture that was there for thousands of years to push his communist vision. So that's really my main point, is that the real fear is that a power structure will come to fruition made up of these extremists. And the first thing they go after is, you're not allowed to say this and you're not allowed to say that. And I will point to specific examples as we go deeper into the specifics. I want to talk about Mark Bray, who I think is the face of Antifa, even though he claims he is not. He claims he's just a supporter and a benefactor. However, I believe that Antifa is far more organized than they claim, and I believe Bray is certainly a public face, a very well-spoken intellectual public face. And some of the things he says, if you look deep, if you look at them, you just hear him say it, you're like, well, that's reasonable, that's okay. When you really look deep, though, into what he's saying, and then you compare it with statements by people like Stalin, people like Mao, these left extremists, you will find that a lot of it is the same thing. So in my mind, Antifa is very, very, very dangerous, and they have that radical left ideology that has infiltrated and brought back up to some kind of prominence. This Antifa force is actually taking hold in several different places in this country, including Hollywood. Okay, so I'll leave it there for my opening argument. And Jeff, let's talk about how you see this issue.
Well, first off, I'm having mic issues. Can everybody hear me?
I can.
How does it sound?
Good.
I also can't hear you in my headphones right now, so I'm going to try to get through this without stumbling too much. But essentially, I want to say, first of all, good evening, Your Honors, members of the jury and the Teat Army. Today, we will be having a very important discussion, and I believe that our democracy is under attack, and I believe it can't hold out for much longer. At the end of this debate, we are going to ask you to make a decision. What is more dangerous to our modern-day democracy, the radical left or the mainstream right-wing Republican Party, which is peddling the conspiracy theories that I'm going to be bringing up today, otherwise known as the alt-right? I am not here to prove Mr. Sterner wrong. In fact, we agree that his concerns about the radical left quelling free speech is very concerning. No, in fact, I intend to prove to all of you and Mr. Sterner that his nightmare is being played out right now in real time in front of our faces by the mainstream Republican Party. I intend to show that the radical left doesn't really have any power in this country to effect change. But the party that controls 60% of our government while only representing 40% of the country does. You're probably wondering how I plan to do this. What proof do I have? Well, I plan on proving my point by hitting a variety of topics: gerrymandering, the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, the tactics that are being used to suppress the votes of the American people with targeted precision. I plan on showing how right-wing media like Fox News, OANN, the Red Elephants, and more use free speech to attack the very democracy that is meant to protect it. I plan to talk about how the Tea Party has risen to power and is now a permanent fixture in mainstream politics, and how they opened the door for a proud member of QAnon to win a Republican primary and will, without a doubt, win a congressional seat this upcoming election. Can we talk about how the Republican Party worked for decades to lie, cheat, and steal Supreme Court seats and federal court judge seats in order to stack it against reasonable thinking? Elected officials making up rules that never existed to deny a president his constitutional right. The constant attack on Roe versus Wade and the ACA, which have and are decided law. The constant denial of congressional representation for the people of Washington, D.C., which goes against the mantra of taxation without representation is theft. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Greg's concerns are real, but they're not coming from the group he fears. It's coming right now from the group he didn't expect. And that group is the one forcing and peddling these conspiracy theories, wild, ridiculous conspiracy theories onto people like us. Greg, in fact, I would probably have agreed with you 100% before the internet. But the internet has taken us to a place where these conspiracy theories gather so much traction that they are unstoppable. And yes, we can look back in history and talk about what has happened in quote-unquote socialist countries, people being killed. The institutions that we have in place are designed to prevent that. Those same institutions are being attacked right now by these conspiracy theories being peddled by the Republican Party that is in power right now and controls our government. So those are my opening arguments. I want to give each of us a chance to reply to each other's opening arguments. So, Greg, I'm going to go ahead and let you reply first.
Well, I would reply. I feel like a true discourse. Like we can go statement for statement if you want. I don't have a problem with that. But I have a couple of questions that I'd like you to address. Okay. Number one, the institutions that they are coming after, that you spoke of, the institutions that make America what America should be. I think that if you look at the far radical left, specifically the ideas of Antifa, they already believe that this is a fascist regime that they are currently under. They believe that violence is necessary in certain situations to combat against that as a matter of measured self-defense. And I know Leah has something she wants to speak on here. But my question for you, Jeff, to respond is, how are you measuring the danger of the conspiracy theories? You're stating an intention, but as far as actual destruction, death, things like that, do you feel at this point that we either have had that or will very soon have actual people dying in the streets in big numbers because of these conspiracy theories? That would be the first thing I'd want you to answer.
I got the perfect answer for you. We have almost 170,000 dead Americans right now from the coronavirus because of an entire administration pushing false information, saying that there's a cure, saying that it's going to go away, saying that it's a liberal hoax. People believed him, saying that masks don't work, and now people are dead. People talking about that this is pneumonia, this is the flu, not anything to be worried about. Talking about people are dying from pneumonia, and hospitals are saying it's COVID to get a payout. These are all conspiracy theories being peddled that are causing deaths.
Yeah, I would agree that those are conspiracy theories, most likely being peddled, and that they probably have resulted, like some stupid people have probably been their deaths have happened as a result of their ignorance. That, though, stating that 170,000 people is a number you can point to that these conspiracy theories have resulted in killing, that would be like saying the conspiracy aspect of this was the entire responsible reason for those 170,000 deaths, and it's not anywhere even in that same universe. This virus would have killed, tens of thousands of people no matter what, and probably the lion's share of that 170,000 number.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but we'll never know because nobody took any responsibility in the beginning. This could have been very different. There's countries that had a game plan and listened to the scientists and had very little deaths compared to the United States per capita. So again, I disagree with you. If in fact they took proper action based on what the experts were telling us, and this still happened, they could at least say we did everything we could. They can't say that.
Leah, you had a point you wanted to bring up in response to one of our statements.
I just want to clarify one quick thing. I've said this before, but Antifa is not a political group. It is an ideology. There is no Antifa group that you can point to.
Okay, so I would was that the full statement, Leah?
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clarification. It's an ideology. Okay. It is not a political action committee.
Okay, so according to Mark Bray, who has done intensive research on this, and I believe is the public face and spokesperson, he called it a decentralized politics. That leads into what you're saying, Leah. But he said there are aspects. There's the Torch Network in North America. There's the anti-fascist movement in Great Britain. These are centralized points along the Antifa network. Now there may be. They say anyone calling themselves Antifa can take part in this effort, but they are expected. That was his quote, to be to be against alt-right, white supremacy, and Donald Trump, and supportive of an anti-racist, anti-sexist society. But there is no central command. It's a decentralized politics. Yet he took 50% of the proceeds of his book, and he said it would go to the International Anti-Fascist Fund. Now, as soon as I hear that, I'm saying, well, that doesn't sound very decentralized at all. That sounds quite organized, that you could channel money in a very specific place to support the efforts of Antifa. So he claims, his public claim is, I myself have not done anti-fascist work. I support and sympathize with those who do. But I will say that based on his own statements and his own level of involvement, I would take great issue with the accuracy of his words.
That's fair. I'm not going to really argue with you on that, other than the fact that I don't really fear Antifa. I don't worry about walking out into the street and them attacking me. I do worry about me at a peaceful protest for Black Lives Matter being confronted by right-wing extremists looking to cause a ruckus in the name of peaceful protesting. As peaceful protesters, because it's being proven to happen right now during this latest round of protest for racial injustice. We know, based on court records, that these admitted alt-right-wing extremists are going there causing issues in hopes that the spotlight ends up on BLM.
You say you don't fear.
And let me ask you a question before you answer. Isn't that, in a sense, quelling free speech?
What specifically? Repeat the very part that you say is because I want to answer it.
Well, we have the right to peacefully protest, peacefully gather, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So these alt-right extremists, right? You're saying Antifa uses violence to quell free speech. That's part of your argument. Where there's really not a whole lot of proof of that. But we do have proof of this latest round of protests for racial injustice where alt-right extremists are going to these peaceful protests, causing violence, hoping to shine the spotlight on BLM as a violent organization, getting the protest shut down. Isn't that kind of what you're worried about from Antifa? Isn't that exactly what you're afraid of them doing?
Sure it is.
But it's happening. We have proof. We have court records of it happening. These people getting arrested and picked up from doing it. It doesn't stop them, but it's actually happening. Whereas there's not a whole lot of proof Antifa is causing a whole lot of violence, if any at all.
And what speech do you think those groups are trying to block? The speech that Black Lives Matter, the speech that equality for all should be. Are they trying to come in and legitimately block that speech, in your opinion? And what would be their goal in doing that?
Well, that's their motivation, Greg. But what they're blocking is the First Amendment right to peacefully gather and protest. Obviously they care that they don't appreciate the message. I mean, that's obvious. That's the motivation.
I would not be naive enough to say that there are not actors on the right who are trying to disrupt peaceful protests to be a nuisance and to get them to stop or to make them look worse or to make it look like these are all violent protests or whatever the ends of that were. I would not begin to deny that for a second. What I would say, though, is that you said, I don't fear Antifa. And I think, I think the only reason you say that is because you're not currently saying things that Antifa would not get behind. I think that if you're a very, very outspoken person in public about your political views. I think if...
No, I'm not. That's a lie.
Oh, okay. I apologize for my deceitful
Someone fact check that shit. Go to my Facebook page. Nothing but pictures of babies and dogs.
Yeah, so what I would say is you have all the reason in the world to fear Antifa, Jeff, because right now that if you think Antifa is just the guys with the ski masks on throwing explosives at the Starbucks and stuff like that, you are only seeing a tiny little sliver of the whole picture. Okay, these guys have an agenda, and it is to take down what they consider a fascist regime. That means everything goes along with it. That allows for things like riots in the streets and blowing up places in the name of self-defense against these fascist powers. Now, if you started to say things that got on the ban list, right now you don't say anything anti-transgender, you don't say anything racist, you don't say a whole lot of stuff. But if all of a sudden there was a group that you thought were kind of like, those guys are full of shit, and I don't really buy into their whole regime, but it was part of the Antifa program, or let's just say the radical far left program, if you started to say things that no longer were cool, and you were voicing that peaceful protest about how you felt, and you got firebombed in the face, or you got beat the shit beat out of you, which has happened to a lot of people, I don't think you could honestly say I have no reason to fear Antifa. So if the only reason you don't fear them right now is because you're still saying the right shit, that's not a good reason not to fear them.
Well, I'll point to Charlottesville. It's only one example, but the right-wing media portrayed the anti-protest group as Antifa. So let's call them Antifa, just for argument's sake. Who ran over who? Who got violent first? It was the people marching in support of white nationalists. It was white nationalism. They were the ones that ran over a single mother with their car and killed her. It was not Antifa. Antifa was there to protest the protest, which again is free speech. No one is saying that the alt-right can't come out and protest the protest. That's not what they're doing. They are purposely causing violence to make it look like groups like BLM and Antifa are the ones causing violence. So people like my family, who's very conservative, it uses riots instead of the word peaceful protest. I was reading something, and I didn't check into this. I'll be honest, but if true, what I read, there were 700 peaceful protests across the country. Out of those 700 peaceful protests, there was 11 quote unquote violent acts, riots, and over half of them were caused by right-wing extremists or undercover police. 11. So let's just say there were 11 accounts of violence. Forget about who caused it. Out of 700 peaceful protests, there's 11 riots. So again, right-wing media, the mainstream right-wing Republican Party, including Donald Trump and his administration, are using the word riots instead of peaceful protests when there's only 11 to account for out of 700. 11. That is dangerous. Now regular people are afraid of this movement that is for racial injustice, and there's nothing to be afraid of.
What movement are you talking about? You're not talking about Antifa, I hope.
I'm talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm talking about the
okay.
most recent, the protesting George Floyd's death.
Yeah,
and there was protests all across the entire country. There's still protests going on. At the time I read this article, there was 700 peaceful protests. And out of those 700, there was 11 that turned violent or could be considered riots. And out of those 11, some were caused by alt-right extremists and undercover police.
I haven't looked at the figures that you're trying to recall right now, Jeff. And you already said you're not 100% sure on the number.
I forget the article. I would love to be able to cite it right now, but I forget it. I came across it. I'm just saying, if it's true.
Yeah. What bothered me was that what I was hearing during those times, even if let's just not even put a number to it. Let's just say the protests that turned violent, where violence was part of it. If you don't think that there were elements on both sides trying to incite that, again, it wasn't just the bad guys that were there to do it. It wasn't those far right extremists with their hoods on, trying to do some bad shit and then make it look like it was all these bad protesters that did it. Antifa certainly plays those types of games. Okay, when they create violence in a given already pressure cooker of a situation, if you don't think that they're trying to create chaos and not really just, well, we're here to just protect the good speech and these bad guys aren't letting us, so we got to get tough. That's not what they're doing, okay? And this idea of Black Lives Matter, okay, look, Black Lives Matter is a great thing. The Me Too movement was a great thing. But these people, these far left extreme thinkers, okay, remember, I'm always talking about the ideology, not even an individual, because there will always be conspiracy kooks on the left. There will always be conspiracy kooks on the right. All right. There always has been. There always will be. Okay. They are propaganda pushers. They are carnival barkers for whatever agenda they're hooked up into. That being said, they are trying to turn something like Black Lives Matter into a divisive problem by now wrapping it up, making it almost impossible to separate from defund the police and Blue Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and all that shit. They get in there. All right. And they use that shit to create a situation where they can suggest that the institutions of today, like the police, need to come down. And we did a whole show on that. And there's people that will defund the police as having this very reasonable definition to it. I say it is a propaganda move calling for the takedown of the servants of the power, which is our law enforcement force that defends what they consider the fascist power of this country. All right.
And that's the heart of our disagreement, because what's actually happening, because again, you will never, okay, I shouldn't say never. I'm not naive. I'm saying mainstream left-wing politicians, you will not hear them defend Antifa or violence in any way, shape, or form. However, you will hear it on the mainstream right. They will peddle the conspiracy that all BLM events are violent. They never talk about the peaceful ones. They never talk about what the actual message is supposed to be. Instead, they choose to peddle the conspiracy theories that you're speaking of, whether that's Antifa or not. It's the right that's peddling those conspiracy theories. Now, I would argue with you all day that it's not Antifa that's wrapping all that stuff up. It's Donald fucking Trump. It's his administration. It's his followers that will put any sort of violent act by a black person. Oh, they're BLM. They're BLM. They're Black Lives Matter.
They certainly do that. I guess the crux of my problem is that when I look at Antifa and I consider Antifa the far radical left, they just happen to be more militant. Okay, the thought and speech police that have already taken hold. Okay, they've taken real hold and power now, Jeff, in Canada. All right, with that C-16 legislation that we discussed on the PC culture episode, I believe it was. All right, they have already gotten a foothold in that country, compelling you to use certain speech. Okay, that is a big, dangerous step forward. They have already, in my opinion, infiltrated and controlled large parts of Hollywood. Okay, because think about Hollywood for a second. Almost 100% liberal. Okay, lots of money. Okay, lots of power brokers in Hollywood, and what they have done is they've come in and they've created this situation where, in cancel culture world, if you say the wrong shit, you're canceled. You're done. These people in these people in Hollywood, they live in a world built on popularity, and it's like a big popularity contest. And if you threaten their livelihood and their millions and their fame and their jet-setting lifestyle, if you threaten that with the idea that you're going to brand them as a bigot or a racist or whatever, they're going to get with your program really quick, which is why Hollywood actors and Hollywood personalities are so quick to acquiesce and say, you know what, I was using my white privilege, and unbeknownst to me, I was using my white privilege, so because I was voicing this character of a different ethnicity than my own, and it should have been a person of that ethnicity doing it, so I'm going to stop abusing my white power, and I'm going to step away from that role. Okay, they've got these people dancing by their string, man. All right, this is how it starts to happen. And it's always under the auspices of creating a better situation. Antifa, again, I'll go back to it because you gotta look at the trends here and what's happening. All right, Mark Bray when he was asked if Antifa was opposed to free speech, he says, and this is my paraphrasing of him, fascism comes to power legally. So from the Antifa perspective, you must confront legal demonstrations to keep the expansion of the fascist idea from happening. That is speech control. That is thought control. They also said, on free speech specifically, he said there must be an understanding of free speech with an allowance for diversity across the board, except at the very fringes. Okay, so what he's really saying there is at the very fringes, there are things being said by white supremacists and fascists that we don't like, and we're not going to allow that shit to be said anymore. But everybody else around here, you can have your free speech and your allowance for diversity. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you allow them to take one thing, ban one word, okay, tell you can't say or think one thing, and you got to go along with this program, they can take it all. And again, you look at Maoist China, you look at Stalin, that's what they did. They collectivized the farms. They basically said, you guys are all still going to do this work, but we're going to take whatever you're producing and we're going to control it. And we're going to determine where it gets allocated. And in those situations, it was a living nightmare of starvation and famine because the people at the top got more than the people at the bottom. Because people organizing anything, you're going to have corruption. Not only that, but even if we do come up with the perfect plan for equality, where the good speech is all still in there, but all the bad speech is out, and we can live in that happy world where those nasty things don't get said. If you're thinking that equality and opportunity for all of an equal measure can happen without strong enforcement from the top, you are dead wrong. If you think we can communally achieve that, you are dead wrong based on history. And again, I'll point out again, any ideology that took hold, which said this is the way forward and everything else is wrong, this is how we're going to do it, and no one can speak out against it, okay? Mao had his Red Terror team going out there and shooting professors and shooting people who would say anything against the Communist Party because it was rule with an iron fist. You get with the program. The program's your entire reality. That's all there is. This happened, guys. It happened, and tens of millions of people died, okay? So all I'm saying is you better be scared of this ideology that these far left extremists are espousing. You better be scared of it, because if it takes hold here, I promise you, no matter how much you agree with them now, you will not like the result.
Yeah, but Greg, one could argue that that's already happening in this country. The wealth inequality is exactly what you're talking about. It's everything goes to the 1/10 of 1% of the population, and the rest get zilch. That wealth inequality is already there, and we're talking corporate socialism. They brand it and force it down our throats as capitalism. It's corporate socialism. It's already happening. And I don't want to get you on a technicality here, but we're not talking about Canada or China. We're talking about our democracy, the threat to our democracy. That's what we're talking about.
If you're not scared of something that's taken hold in Canada, our neighbors to the north, if you don't think something happening there could very easily weave its way under, that's naive.
I'm not naive. I don't. We have Bernie Sanders is still not able to get elected in this country, and they call him far left extreme because he wants everybody in the country to have decent health care. How is that an extreme view?
Bernie Sanders is not far left extreme.
But he's labeled as that by the right. While we have somebody from everybody on the right. No. Everybody on the right.
No.
Right? I can't find. You show me an example of somebody who votes for Donald Trump and right-wing Republicans that would not say that Bernie Sanders is not far left extreme. He is labeled that way. He's branded that way to the point where his own party, the even people who consider them progressive, are afraid of his very reasonable proposals.
Well, they are.
But at the same time, we have on the right QAnon, a proud QAnon member getting voted into Congress this election.
Yeah, but that QAnon is not anything new. They've been saying that shit for years and years and years.
But Antifa isn't getting elected to political power here in this country, like you're saying is happening in Canada.
I know
QAnon but the Tea Party did.
But I'm saying I'm saying, and you make a good point about the Tea Party hijacking a good portion of the right, and look, the alt-right and those conspiracy theorists have largely hijacked the right. I'm not saying any of that is untrue. It absolutely is true. As far as Sanders, I think you could find plenty of reasonable people on the right who would not say Bernie Sanders and people that espouse the ideology of Antifa or far radical left thought and speech control would not say Bernie Sanders was synonymous with that. I do think his own party is scared of him. That's why he got screwed out of it twice to be able to go, and he was probably the only guy, in my opinion, that could have taken down Trump in this election coming up. I don't think
we would agree on that.
Well, maybe not, but I'm just saying.
I said we agree on that.
Okay. Now,
I think things have changed now, but
I don't want to get on
that argument.
I don't want to get on this tangent, but I think Biden made the only smart play he could with Kamala Harris. I think that was the only juice he could put behind his campaign, because other than that, I don't mean to say this in an insensitive way, but he's the equivalent of a political corpse at this point. I don't think he's got any juice behind him at all. And I know Mounts just came in. He has something that he wants to say here.
Let's get Mounts, and then let's end this segment. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back.
Cool. That's what I was going to do.
Can't hear you.
Wrap it up. Final thoughts. All right. That's it. That's all I had to say.
Oh, you were giving us the hook. Okay.
Right. All right. I'm out of here.
All right. Let's take a quick break. You're going to hear from a couple of our sponsors, and we'll be back after that. We all want to train our dogs to do what we ask them to do. The only way to train a dog to do anything is to motivate them. The best way to motivate them is with food. The more they love the food, the more motivated they are. When it comes to our dogs at Whitehorse, we use True Chews. True Chews are all natural dog treats that can be broken up into little pieces very easily, which makes them great for training. Dogs love them, so they are eager to learn. But most of all, they are healthy for your dog. You can buy a 22-ounce bag at any pet store for about $24. Or you can use the affiliate link in our description and pay $14. Do it for your dog. True Chews.
I'm a stay-at-home mom. I co-host a podcast and I produce 2 others. So there's a lot of late nights and even more early mornings with the kids. I'm obsessed with these Drip Drop dehydration relief packets. You take a packet, you put it into a bottle of water. I personally use my Zac cup and you're good to go. It's the perfect little afternoon pick-me-up. And let's face it, who doesn't need one of those?
Welcome back to the Ever-Evolving Truth. We are in intense debate here, Mr. Sterner and I. And what do we have on tap here for the second segment, Greg? Oh, by the way, we're still friends. We hashed out our differences during the break. No one punched each other.
No, I would never punch Jeff. I am not like that. I think that you can solve any. Well, I heard wise advice. I think it was actually the wrestling promoter Vince McMahon that said this, but he said 2 people can solve any problem unless one's an asshole. And I think that's actually quite a good way to look at it. If two people are willing to talk, sit down and talk, you can solve just about anything. But so Jeff, let's talk a little bit. We've hit on aspects of each of our segments. I kind of want to. So in the third segment, I think we're going to talk about our final arguments for why our side of this argument is in our minds more dangerous, speak to total death toll, current power dynamics in American society, and our future predictions about a world where one of these elements has taken hold and what that future picture looks like. But let's just talk about, in our current reality, which of these two, conspiracy theory, and Jeff, I think one of the issues with our difference of opinion here is that your mindset of conspiracy theory, your outlook on what that actually encompasses, much like you see Antifa much smaller than I do, I see conspiracy theorists much smaller than you do, and I think that's actually the crux of our disagreement here.
Well, that's a good thing for us to talk about. And it's not that I just see Antifa smaller. I believe that there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't call themselves Antifa, but believe in some of their ideas. Like who out there and maybe this is another poll we can do, who out there is against fascism? It should be 100% of us, right? So that one thing we can all agree that Antifa's got it right, where we should be against fascism. But the way that
hold on, I'm going to let you finish, but I don't agree.
You're not against fascism?
I am against fascism, of course, but Antifa does not believe that. Antifa wants something worse than fascism. They want totalitarianism. That's when they get into your lives and your thoughts and your speech. And we'll get into examples. And we'll see. I'm going to go down a list, probably in the third segment, where we talk about Mao and some of the things he did. And it's going to bring up some scary sort of like, whoa, that's kind of something that's happening now or something similar. So that, that I want to get to that later. But so let's define what we mean by our definitions of these two warring entities here. Let's start there.
So, I mean, first of all, what I am saying is that let's say this happened before the internet. Let's say we were having this debate before the internet. I might agree with you 100% because a conspiracy theorist would stand out in the town square and scream on a soapbox, and people would walk by and say that dude's fucking crazy. Now, with the internet and how easy it is for people to connect, especially people with the same beliefs or people that are easily manipulated and can be manipulated into believing something with no actual facts associated with it, those people are able to connect and peddle their conspiracy theory much easier than even 20 years ago. But especially before the internet. Now these people are grouping together, they're showing their strength, and they're putting forth media and content that looks official. Anybody can make a YouTube video that looks like a news report. How do you think we have OANN, who's one of their anchors, their tagline is, remember, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. There's a section of the population, a large section of the population that tunes into that network for their news. That is dangerous. They're the new Alex Jones, the Red Elephants. Maybe that's one you haven't heard of. Over 500,000 people, last time I checked, tune into the Red Elephants and get their news from there. They are absolutely deplorable. They are psychopaths. And not only do 500,000 people plus tune into them, but over 100 of the people on my friends list like their page. This is happening to regular people who used to be able to reason. They used to be able to watch the nightly news. And part of this is on the mainstream media. They've become completely, glorified over the years and then drop the ball a couple times here and there and become completely untrustworthy, combined with our orange peel in chief, constantly degrading them on a daily basis for 5 years straight.
He owns them like his bitch. He's got them wrapped around his little finger, and they fall for it every day.
But the natural evolution of mainstream media and today's media market has been they are entertainment at night. From 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night, they are an opinion show. That's what people watch. So when people tune into CNN, even if they're presenting the facts, they also get, based on these facts, we think that Donald Trump is a piece of shit. They're getting the opinion part of it, and that's all they're focusing on. Whereas maybe during the day or your local news, or if you read your news from those same sources, you're going to get a much more unbiased opinion. But people are focusing solely on the primetime personalities, and Fox News is the most viewed, not just the most viewed news station. They're the most viewed programming, and that happened recently. Ratings wise, they are more watched than actual entertainment television. And this is a very dangerous thing because so many people can connect and help each other peddle these untruths.
So what do you think if they're dangerous and you believe they're dangerous? I know this. That would entail that there is intent in their actions and that there's an end game that they're moving toward. Maybe a good way for both of us to flesh out why we think the danger exists to such a high degree is to really talk about what do you think the end game of this coordinated conspiracy theory peddling is? Where do they think? Where do you think they're going, and what is their vision of the future America that they want to see happen? And then I'll do the same for the Antifa and far radical left side.
Okay, well, it clearly on the Republican side, it's unbridled power. It's never to be able to let any sort of liberal or progressive dictate any sort of effect on a law whatsoever. And this is proven by gerrymandering. That happens on one side, not both. It happens on one side. The severely gerrymandered battleground states finally starting to turn. but a little bit in some cases. But they are so severely gerrymandered in Republican favor that it's almost impossible to get it undone. Look at North Carolina. North Carolina is a purple state. It is virtually impossible to get a congressman elected in North Carolina because of how the state is drawn up. Let's talk about voter suppression. This is happening on one side, not both. There is one side that is making it considerably harder for Democrats, mostly people of color, to vote, and they're having success doing this because of the gerrymandering success that they've had in the past. This has been a decades-long plan, and we are seeing it work right now. I will point to Georgia.
Okay, but real quick, you're talking about conspiracy theorists in the context of that overall plan of the right, okay? So I would say that you're still agreeing with me that the overall overarching ideology of the right is still what these conspiracy theories are trying to accomplish. These conspiracy theorists are trying to accomplish. I would say the ones that actually have a cause and believe in something, you probably have it right. That they're trying to push that long end game. As I stated earlier, I think so many of the conspiracy theorists, they're in the conspiracy business. They're not in the left or right business. They are in the I have to be talking about a power that is coming to get you, a boogeyman that is in the shadows that you need to be scared of. That's what conspiracy theorists largely peddle.
Let me ask you, Greg, because I am interested. I want to understand this side of it from you. Is there something you can point to? Like, give me a conspiracy theory that comes from the left that is designed to mislead people into not trusting the other side. Like, give me one true conspiracy theory that we all fell for.
Well, I don't know about it. I don't know who fell for what, but I'll go through a couple of leftist conspiracy theories. You have your personalities on the left. Okay, there was an article in the I believe it was the Atlantic, how the left has lost its mind, and I believe it was talking about like Twitter conspiracists and hyper-partisan Facebook groups and stuff like that. So a couple people, Claude Taylor, Andrea Chalupa, Eric Garland, Leah McElrath, these are the names mentioned here. I'm not familiar with all of them. But
I've never heard of any of them.
So conspiracies on the left would be a diet of highly provocative speculation, rumor, and innuendo that makes it sound as if Trump's presidency and really the entire Republican Party is perpetually on the verge of a spectacular meltdown. So who's trumpeting the idea that Trump won't leave the White House if he loses the next election? There's a bunch of you that bought into that idea, and I don't think there's any reason to believe it. Who's trumpeting the reasons why he should be impeached again and now? Who's trumpeting the idea? Hold on, let me get through them, and then you can respond.
I know, but I have to, so I don't forget, I have to respond to each one. So let me just respond to the I don't think the Trump leaving office is a conspiracy theory. There's plenty of things that point to him not leaving willingly or accepting the results of the election, because he came out and said it himself.
He said himself that he would leave.
He said himself he wouldn't. He doesn't know if he would trust the results of the election, and
he might not trust the results, but he said he would leave.
Yes, but his actions are showing that he is going to put up a fight talking about voter fraud that doesn't exist. These are all actions, so I wouldn't call that a conspiracy theory.
See, one thing they point to, and then there is the idea that Trump will use the current divided public situation to create martial law. So he's going to point to these, and I think the tide has already turned on this, of this actually happening. I think people were really feeling this fear right around the time of Floyd and all the protests and the violence.
But again, can I speak on that specific conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
He did a version of that. It wasn't exactly martial law, but he sent unmarked federal agents and arrested peaceful protesters, threw them in a van. That happened. That's not conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I heard this, Jeff, and that is not martial law, number one. And
no, it's not martial law. I agree with you there, but it's pushing that line.
But when you say it that way, or when people say it that way, it sounds like, oh my God, they're disappearing people. They're just coming up to these innocent protesters are holding up their Black Lives Matter sign, and they're throwing them in the back of a van, and they're just taking them, whisking them away, probably to Guantanamo Bay or something.
But that's what they said about Hitler. Well, he's only doing this. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, the Holocaust happened.
Come on, man, Jesus,
Greg. There's steps to he can't just do everything he wants to do at once. There's steps. This is a step. That is a step. I'm not saying he'll ever get there. I'm not saying that's even his intention. I'm saying these are steps, and they're scary. That what happened in Portland them arresting peaceful protesters and unmarked federal agents is scary as fuck. Way scarier than anything that Antifa's done.
Well, there's a lot about Trump and the hardcore extremist Republicans that are very scary. I won't deny any of that. What I'm trying to say though is that you mentioned, it's a step, but a conspiracy theory is connecting the dots on something that has not yet happened. And by connecting of those dots, you say, because this and this connects, the truth of things is actually this. And because this is the truth of things, this is how it's actually going to end up. That's how conspiracy theories work. So whether Trump eventually declares martial law and turns himself into a president king, which I'm not scared of happening, but let's just say that does happen. Right now, people talking about it, saying it's going to happen, are conspiracy theorists. So I'm just mentioning some on the left side. There are people that saying that high-ranking, like journalists and government officials, are actually secret Russian agents, that Andrew Breitbart was murdered by Vladimir Putin, that the Kremlin has compromat on everyone, and oh, by the way, a presidency-ending sex tape is going to drop any day now. This kind of stuff. Now, the other thing this Atlantic article pointed out to, because I wanted to be ready with at least a little bit of on the left, they talk about VIP validators. So one sign of the potential power in this alternate media universe is the regularity with which stories that originate there end up reaching public figures with real influence. Now, Jeff, before you jump on this happens absolutely on the left and the right. Okay, the right does this all the time. But the scary part is that when people who may not be that sophisticated when it comes to their true knowledge of this, they hear something they like in this, and then they start touting it. Okay, they start talking about it as a regular thing, and it gains steam. A lot of times it happens when somebody famous starts talking about it. Even a guy who I'm a huge admirer of, Jesse Ventura, said that he believed that Trump had a big enough ego that he would use this situation to potentially create martial law so he would not be able to be removed from office. That's the former governor of Minnesota saying that. Okay, and I think at this point, Jesse Ventura had no reason to say that was going to happen. There was no proof that was going to happen. There was no even strong evidence that for sure it was going to happen. And at that point, it's conspiracy oriented fear mongering. Okay, and that happens a lot on both sides.
But I don't see, again, listen, you technically, I guess you're right. You gave me the definition of what a conspiracy theory is. However, when Trump says things like, well, perhaps I'll just postpone the election. Again, that points to there being some validity. Now, granted, he doesn't understand that he can't, that it's not his call.
I think he does understand that he can, and I think he's trolling people when he does that.
Okay,
I absolutely do.
But you can't call you can't exactly call that a conspiracy when there's literal fear. This is the president of the United States saying these things. First of all, why is he trolling people? That's not the job of the president. But number two, the conspiracy theories that I'm talking about are something like Pizzagate. Everybody knows what Pizzagate is because it's a real conspiracy theory. It's not only that, it's fucking dangerous because no matter who you talk, if there's someone that believes Pizzagate is real, they are not open to hear why it's not real. They're not open to proof. Whereas the conspiracy theories that you talked about are open for discussion. People like myself are willing to have a debate, a discussion about why we think Trump isn't going to leave office willingly. And the people that believe Pizzagate are not willing to have that discussion in any way, shape, or form. It is a conspiracy theory that has taken hold of them. It is now dictating how they think, how they vote, how they're going to live the rest of their life, thinking that at every chance Hillary Clinton is going to steal their young daughter and sex traffic that daughter. To the point where somebody went up and shot up a pizza shop trying to save these girls. It didn't matter to him that he didn't save any girls. There was no little girls there being sex trafficked. That didn't matter. That guy still believes that Pizzagate is a thing.
But I would point out that in a totalitarian regime, which would be the natural end to far left radical ideology taking hold and becoming the power system, you have a situation where everybody would be saying the same thing. Everybody would be doing the same thing. At least with this conspiracy theory about Comet. I can never say it without stumbling. I don't know why. Comet Ping Pong. The reason
it's a weird name for a pizza shop. Can we agree on that?
It is very weird. You're right.
Like I would never hear that name and be like, oh, I bet they have great pizza.
Maybe they do, though. I'm not going to go because I don't want to get shot. But I will say this. I'm kidding. I don't think anybody's shooting up Comet Ping Pong anymore right now. But the reason I'm not scared of that is because Jones has millions of listeners. This one crazy kook did the act. There were plenty of other people who listened to Jones either for entertainment, because they believe some of what he says, because they're trying to get a balanced viewpoint. Whatever your reason for listening to Jones is, the truth is a lot of people heard that same bullshit, and one guy shot up Comet Ping Pong. So again, in a totalitarian situation where you're being told what to think and do, and everybody's marching literally to the same drum in the same formation, with the same signs of their exalted figure held up, that is the shit that I'm scared of if it comes to its natural end. Which, again, I've said this often. I don't think this is right around the corner, guys. I think if left to its natural end, it could end up as it has in other nations in the last 50, 60 years. Okay? That is not a long time at all. And millions upon millions died. Okay, so go ahead.
Before that ever happens, climate change is going to kill us all anyway. So why are we even debating this? Show over. Goodbye.
Climate change is going to kill us in 60 years.
Well, if you listen to some scientists.
I don't want to listen to those scientists if they're saying that. But I would tell you this, Jeff. I believe here maybe I can make a clear point here. I think extreme ideologies on both the right and the left are more dangerous than conspiracy theorists on the right and the left. Okay, I think what's going to happen with a conspiracy theorist, let's say Steve Bannon would have, and he's not quite a conspiracy theorist, but he's certainly a provocateur. I'm
going to let you keep going, but I believe that conspiracy theory has become an ideology.
But that would just be like saying I'm going to connect the dots on things I don't know and make up stories, and that's my ideology. I don't know if that's enough to even be an ideology. Although they don't believe it's
connecting the dots. They believe it actually happened. There's no doubt in their mind.
But
this is a big portion of the population. These are, if you go through my Facebook, I should just give you my login information and let you just scroll through it one day. And again, it's not.
Are you talking about the listeners or the conspiracy theorists?
I'm talking about the conspiracy theorists.
Okay, because Alex Jones, I have always said I believe that he believes what he says to a large degree. He's a tremendous manipulator, and he says crazy shit to provoke and to create shock value and to keep people tuning into his madness. But I think the vision he has of the world and this globalism and the elites at the top controlling us and wanting to be their bottom working class in a totalitarian regime, I think he absolutely believes that. The problem is every time it doesn't happen, he's got to create a new villain. So when Obama was in office, for instance, Jones said Obama was the closer. He's the globalist closer, and he's going to finally get it done. And then when that didn't happen in Obama's presidency, Trump came in. Now, he was all about Trump. He didn't think Trump was going to win, I can tell you that much. And then when Trump won, instead of saying for Alex Jones, oh, all is right with the world now he's got to go back to, oh my God, they're finally making their move. This, COVID is a big conspiracy. He didn't quite say that, but he's pushing the idea that they're making their big power grab now. And the way they're doing it is these fear tactics. And Donald Trump, really, maybe he can stop him. Maybe he can stand up to him. But Jones, I'm just getting ready. He goes, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to go off the grid. Of course he's not going to, and then Trump's going to come out of office, and none of this will have happened, and he's going to have to switch gears again. That is a guy who, yes, while he believes in his ideology, he is playing the game of the conspiracy theorists. He's playing.
And no one from his audience ever leaves him.
I did. I used to listen to him with much more frequency when he was saying things that really piqued my interest when I really was not up on a lot of these different histories. And then I went ahead and looked into them myself enough times and realized that he was so crazy off the rails on some of it that I didn't choose to listen to him as much anymore. But I have said, give the devil his due. He's certainly been ahead of the curve on a lot of different things that ended up being true in spite of the inflammatory stuff that he says. So I think ideologies overarching more dangerous than the people peddling the propaganda of those ideologies. If the ideology takes power, you can have a dystopian future where you have these regimes that we've seen in the past that do control your thought and speech. And I'll give you some examples in our third segment of what that actually looks like in practice. And I'm not saying we're there. We're not going to be there for quite a while, but they are gaining a hold, people. And if you don't see them coming, if you don't see their influence on Hollywood, if you don't see their influence on our closest ally, our neighboring ally, Canada, you don't see their influence in the legal system of Canada, and you don't see them making a power grab in media and controlling speech and suppressing, you're not watching if you don't see that stuff.
All I see is Trump and his supporters trying to control the media. the media's right to free speech. And I'll say this as well. I don't believe Antifa is going to make their way into our, because all the things that you describe, let's just say that your definition, your portrayal of Antifa is 100% correct. And they're as dangerous as you say there. I don't see them ever making their way into government because I am a registered Democrat. I don't consider myself party affiliated. I'm registered because I lived most of my life in Pennsylvania and I want to vote in the primaries. And if I'm registered independent, I cannot do that. And I align more with liberal values than Republican values. So I wanted to have control over who the representative of my party is going to be in all levels of government. So if there was somebody that claimed that they were from Antifa and stood for all the things that you are scared about, there are more people like me in the party than are like that. And we would stop that from coming.
They don't want to get in government, Jeff. That's the thing. They don't want to get in this government. What they want, that's why the QAnon goof that got the congressional seat. Look, he's probably doing that to dump some chum in the water of that nationalist base who wants to believe this shit, and he's doing it to get votes. He's playing the same theater everybody else is, probably. Okay, I don't know the guy, I don't know anything about him, so I can only say probably. Antifa does not want to get involved in our government. They want to take this government down and start over again because they consider it to be a fascist regime.
Okay,
so they will not. Go ahead.
That is about as okay. So you think that Trump not willing to leave office willingly is crazy. I think there's no way Antifa is going to take down this government ever. It's not going to happen.
I didn't say that they would necessarily succeed. That's why I'm here talking about this. I hope they don't. I hope people wake up to the agenda because, Jeff, there absolutely is an agenda with those guys and with far left radicals in general. And what I want to say is they don't really care about the left. They don't care about the poor. They wear the mask of the social justice warrior. The reason they do that is because I think Orwell said in his book, I specifically wrote this down, in Orwell's book, The Road to Wigan Pier, I'll paraphrase it, but he basically said these so-called socialists, these, essentially the middle-class socialists who just like the idea of it, they don't really care about the poor. They just hate the rich, okay? Mm-hmm. And these Antifa people are using people, the populace, and their natural sympathy for the oppressed, their natural ability to not want to see people cheated out of a fair shot and to have a good life, and to see groups like women, transgender people, gay people, people of color, all these different people getting oppressed. They use everybody's natural bent toward wanting to see that stop, and they use that as their, that's why they arrive as the wolf in sheep's clothing. But what they really want to do is they want to tell you what you can say and think. And the first thing first place they'll do it is saying, oh, these protected groups, you can't speak out against them anymore. Okay, you're not allowed to say those words. Those are the fringes Bray talked about banning from the conversation. Well, if you're not allowed to say that, what happens when it changes even more? I said on another one of our episodes with Leah, eventually you will age out of having your finger on the pulse of what's going on. Okay, and your values will not line up with the current emerging values, which seem, that's why old people always say stuff that sounds racist, because they're speaking from their own perspective and their own values from years gone by. Well, eventually you will age out, and you might say, let's just say something crazy becomes allowed. Okay, something absolutely in your mind is abhorrent and shouldn't happen, and they're saying no, that's allowed to happen. Well, now if you're saying something against that, they'll come for you next because you are speaking out against the program. All right, this is programmed thinking that has, when put into practice, and again, in the Soviet Union and China, two of the biggest examples, tens of millions of people died because of it. That's why I'm saying these guys are dangerous. It's exactly the same shit they believe. And I'll end it there, since I know we got to probably break to the segment 3 here soon.
We do. I actually want to bring in Mounts and Leah to kind of check how we're doing. So I'll add them to the stream. I can't hear you guys. There we go.
I still can't hear Leah.
I can't hear Leah now.
Mounts, do you want to go first while she figures out her mic?
Yeah, I think you guys are doing great. I lean towards Sterner's beliefs that Antifa is more dangerous than people are concerned about now. And I don't believe Biden would have won the election. So, or not Biden,
Bernie.
I
feel the opposite, which is incredibly interesting. I think Sterner has made some really good points, but there were a few times I wanted to
Kill him.
jump, not kill him, but just jump in a little bit as the resident communist who really does truly believe that not communism, but Marxism would be a utopia. I have a lot of issues. I think that Donald Trump is a neo-fascist, and I think that the reason he's not trolling anybody when he's making comments like that, I believe, and you can call this a conspiracy theory, but I believe he's saying these things to normalize it. The more you say it, the more Americans get used to it. And that's exactly how Hitler and the Nazis were able to take over the government, with propaganda. And I think that is already currently happening in America as we speak. Whereas, it's not happening on what you're trying to argue. I don't see happening. I don't see Bernie Sanders being elected. Americans are terrified of socialism because they relate it to communism. And for that reason, I don't see us ever becoming any kind of communist country, but I think we're already living in the beginnings of a fascist one.
Well, all I would say is, remember that totalitarianism trumps fascism, and most people that say they want to take down a fascist regime usually replace it with something worse. Because in those times where you want to have equality for all, equality of opportunity, equality of privilege, all those things, someone has to enforce the equality, and you cannot do that without force, because what if somebody says, no, I don't want to do it that way? Well, you're going to get with the program, pal, because this is the program, and we no longer allow for sexism, racism, and oppression. Well, you can take those good ideas, those good values about not allowing that stuff, and you can use it to control everything that is said and done. The reason I say it's so important not to take it away and shut it away and never let it be seen again is because that's exactly what these people did. Okay, Mao Zedong destroyed 1,000 years of Chinese art, culture, things that meant something to so many people, and he tore them down. He tore pieces off the Great Wall of China to build dilapidated structures, to help reinforce and rebuild dilapidated structures. He told everybody where you will work, what you will work, and the free health care they got was largely so they could be seen as being still fit to work. Okay, and they made nothing on it. They still ended up. These people had thought this was the great dream. This was the great utopia that they would find themselves in. Ended up, many of them, millions of them, starving to death. So again, when you do that, and then I hear people in America saying, "You take down the Confederate flag, can't be seen anymore. Take it down. It can't be here. Take away this. You're not allowed to see this. You're not allowed to see Gone with the Wind anymore. You're not allowed to see this anymore." It's the same thinking, is all I'm saying. The gravity is not. The gravity is not.
Let me just chime in there. No one said that you can't buy and own and proudly display a Confederate flag. All we're saying is it shouldn't be on every single government building.
No, that's all you're saying, Jeff. There's plenty of people in this country saying it should be fucking banned.
But it's not the majority. Whereas
I'm saying that's their thinking, Leah. That's the thinking of these people that take it away, make it go away, and this is the only reality. The program is the only reality. Okay, it's that level of thinking that gets people. They thought they had a choice. They thought we were going in the right direction, and now they figured out again. They never cared about the poor. They just hated the rich. So now that when they were in power and they took over, now the new program is going to be set in motion, and that's what everybody's going to follow. And if you don't think they're going to make you follow it, you're sadly mistaken.
No, and I'm with you there. I am totally with you there. You cannot have authoritarianism and still have any sense of humanity. I agree with that. I'm not arguing that.
People saying that they can be in the streets violently opposing the fascism, and they're using violence as their tactic, and they're justifying it through self-defense, which Antifa does. I would say, what are they going to do when they do take power? If they're like, well, we used violence to get here, what are we going to just become pacifists now and never do this again? Just give people a good talking to? Of course not.
I agree. That is absolutely agreed. My point is this. My point is that Donald Trump was the Republican candidate and is now the Republican Party's, the leader of the Republican Party. Right now, the president of the United States is. Whereas what you're talking about on the left, the majority Bernie Sanders, like he said, can't even get the nomination because he's too far left. So the left side of this country, they look at that group that can become become bad. Okay, they look at that group of people as a danger, whereas on the right, they're looking at that side that does do that as their hero. So if we're talking right now, this moment, what's more dangerous? I definitely say that the conspiracies on the right.
So let me just kind of sum that up. This is very simple to understand. The right now, our side, the left side, kicks extremists out. We kicked Anthony Weiner out. We kicked Al Franken out.
They didn't kick him out for being an extremist, Jeff.
Well, for doing bad things. But we don't even allow the extremists to get there to begin with. Whereas the other side lifts up and promotes someone like Roy Moore or what's his face in Arizona, the guy who got pardoned, the sheriff. I forget his name.
Me too. I forget his name.
As I said at the beginning of this show, I don't disagree with any of that, and that how bad it is. I don't disagree.
I know,
with any, I'm just saying the ideology weighs more.
But my argument is what you're presenting is so let's say it's so far away from happening, we have to keep an eye on it. That's not as dangerous as what has taken place right now. What has taken hold of there's two parties in this country, plain and simple.
I think our argument is
one of the parties has been hijacked by conspiracy theorists. That's it. Like it's happening right already.
I do want to respond to this. I think we should take a quick break, and then I'll come back and respond because I want to talk about and remind me if I forget. But Leah said, you said, and it's a good point. So I want to respond to it. Trump is in power. He's the president. Okay. If you think he's going to bring the country to this dystopian view where no one of color gets a say and all this stuff, if you think that's going to happen and become the country, that's worth talking about. I do not believe that to be the case, and I'll tell you why I don't think that. I will
tell you why it's happening right now.
But I will also say that I will also reinforce what I've already said in that if you don't think Antifa has a gigantic foothold, and I'm just calling them Antifa, we can call them the far left radical, or the far radical left. The same birds of the same feather, as far as I'm concerned. We can talk about how they have gained a foothold, a strong one. They are affecting legislation right in our backyard. So if you don't think that they are as immediate a threat as Trump, I'm just going to say the end game for both scenarios, I'll give you my take on it. And that's really all I can do. And then you guys can give your take. So Jeff, you want to take a quick break and then we'll end with that?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ricky, look down there at the bottom of your yard. There's a hot blonde cheerleader in a golden bikini who's crying. What do you think's wrong with her? I don't know. Should I give her the razor's edge? No. Maybe she just hasn't heard the good news. Do you think we should tell her? Yeah, tell her. Excuse me, madam, have you heard the good news? Two Rows from Ringside, the podcast, coming out July 1, 2020. Look, she likes it, Ricky. It's making her happy. Should we go dance with her? Yes, let's do it.
Attention fans, July 1st, 2020, the debut of Two Rows from Ringside, a wrestling variety show podcast coming to the White Horse Media Group podcast stable. My name is Greg Sterner, the man of bullshit, along with
Ricky counting the cheddar Soretta.
And we are going to bring you the greatest wrestling variety show podcast you have ever heard. I guarantee you, fans, you will be hanging from the rafters, engaged
in rapturous pandemonium.
Welcome back to the Ever-Evolving Truth. Greg and I are going at it head-to-head in a vicious debate. If I had to guess, I would say that we are tied right now going into the final segment. Maybe I'm a little ahead. I don't know.
I think I will say this. I think we've done a good job of having the conversation, at least. The people that are going to judge who wins or loses a debate are going to be I agreed with this guy or I agreed with that guy. Those are the people that are going to say a lot of people fall right in the middle.
Also, it's important to point out that neither of us think, well, and look, you're not, you're a person I know who really does tend to go back and forth on certain topics and really focus on how does this person's policy and values line up with mine, where there's not a chance in hell that I will ever vote for someone like Donald Trump in my entire life. But I'm not naive in the sense that I don't think my party's perfect. In fact, if you got me on a debate with someone like Leah, let's say it was just me and Leah, and she was talking about why we should always vote, I would talk about how much I hate the Democratic Party for certain aspects. I just tend to line up with their values. I don't see how a party that can say that they're about family values and God, country, and family in that order, or God, family, country in that order, and then watch them separate children from their parents, throw them in a detention center, lose them for months, and watch them get assaulted and raped by the very group that's allowed to do that. So, to me, that's like if you call yourself a Republican and you stand for family values and you support the man who is enabling this, you're full of shit. Sorry. So I don't believe that my party is perfect by any means. There's many, many issues on it. So I think we've done a good job of showing, hey, look, you need to take a look at your own path and keep it in check. The most important thing that we can do and we can take from these debates and just our show, our episodes in general, is that whoever you vote for, you need to hold them accountable for their actions and not deny what they're actually doing. I don't know if that's fair or not, but I think it's fair.
Well, I was just searching through my notes there. I had this written down, but I'll paraphrase what I my thoughts on it actually were. Here's why I'm not scared of Trump. Okay, here's what I think Donald Trump really is, and again, Jeff sees more immediate danger with the man. He sees him as having more power than I believe he truly has. All that being said, it dawned on me as I was looking at these extreme regimes like Stalin, like Mao, Kim Jong Un and in North Korea, and of course his ancestors. I think that what has happened in America, which we often complain about, is that they talk about the swamp. We're like gridlocked. Every time we have another election, it's like, okay, this guy will get it done. And then it moves a little bit over here. Like it moved a little bit to the left with Obama. And then there's a rubber band kind of reaction when Obama gets elected. And then after 8 years of Obama, we get, flung back. And now we're at the Trump level because we saw even the great change maker, Obama, wasn't able to come in there and turn everything around and make it the great country it should be. So now you get Trump in there. The only thing Trump has done is he hasn't played by the rule book. He's done things that are intentionally trollish, that are intentionally provocative. Throughout all his years as an entertainment personality, he learned how to be a charlatan that takes people for a ride. He learned how to be a great snake oil salesman. He also learned how to disrupt and hit trigger words. He's been saying the whole time things that clearly make it known that he's in league with the white nationalists. Okay, he's made that very, very clear. Anybody with a brain, I think, can see that. That's why he never gives you a straight answer on it. He won't come out and say racism is good, but he won't come out and denounce what they're saying either. Not denounce them, denounce what they're saying, because those people are interchangeable. There will be new people following them up. Okay, so what I'm saying with Trump is, in spite of how repulsive you might find the guy, in spite of how crazy some of the stuff he has said is, if you look at the actions that have taken place politically, laws that have been made, things that have happened, he certainly moved things further to the right for the foreseeable future by getting the Supreme Court in the shape it's in now with the conservative judges that are in there. That's a big change. But you could also say a universal health care plan of any kind was a huge step in the left, which Obama accomplished with a neutered version of Obamacare. So what I think is going to happen here is we're probably going to get 4 more years of Trump. And I think it already went over here, then it sprung back here, and then you're going to get somebody like Kamala Harris. Maybe if she's old enough at that point, you'll get AOC. You'll get a dynamic person on the left who's going to be able to come in there and convince everybody, once again, I'm the guy or I'm the girl that's going to get it done, and then it's going to go back, forth, back, forth. Now, while I say that is very annoying, it actually, I think, is the sign of a system that's working. Okay, if America continues on this track, while we'll have the problems we have, and we have to keep trying to address them, for the power structure to kind of go back and forth like that, we have achieved some kind of balance in our human society over the course of the last, several decades at least, and more than that, most likely, and probably for the foreseeable future. You will only ever get left or right, here or there. That's where the whole machine will go. No one person is powerful enough to come in right now with the current system and the limited powers of the president is able to come in and either be the great magician waving the magic wand or come in and tear everything down and make it a dystopian society. The immediate threat I feel from this radical left is they want to tear the whole thing down, and they are speaking and appealing to young people. Young people have kind of an anarchist bent to begin with, because it's like, okay, I'm arriving at the world, now I have the power to change it. I kind of like this talk about change it for there, get rid of the bad, let's only have the good. The problem is those were the same youth that Mao got into the heads of and had them shooting professors and shooting dissidents, speaking out against the Communist Party. Okay, so while I say, and you guys are like, oh, I don't know why you're so scared of Antifa. They're just, there's this little sect and they're doing these things. But the real problem is the shit going on the right. I'm saying this ideology is taking hold. PC culture, cancel culture. All right. This crazy compelled speech around transgender pronouns in Canada. That's written into the legislation. OK, they have taken a power grab in Hollywood and they have succeeded. All right. And they're trying on the streets now to create disruption, to create chaos, because that's what they want. In order for anarchy to work, you've got to do it in a universe of chaos, because you're going to convince people, hey, we'll fix it. We'll get it back to a good place, but we got to tear all this down first. All right. They're getting there with people really buying into, let's make this symbol go away forever. It should never be allowed to be heard in a polite society. It shouldn't be spoken of. OK, that's why I think as a threat, that ideology, if it continues to take more and more of a foothold and it starts to become an existent power in the states, which it has already become in Canada, or else that law wouldn't have happened. That provision would not have been written into law, because there were many people speaking out against it, saying the same things I am, and it still got passed, which means they have a power hold in the country of Canada. To think that can't happen and happen relatively soon, if people don't wake up to the fact that it's happening, I just think it's plain wrong. I think it absolutely could take hold, and that's why the far radical left, and I'm not saying it will happen. I'm going to fight against it verbally the entire time. I will protest this shit till the end of times. I don't say it will necessarily happen, and I hope it doesn't. I think our country has the potential to still be a wonderful, great country, okay, and really stand for freedom of speech and freedom of ideas and entrepreneurial spirit and kindness for all, welfare for all, in the general sense. I think we can be a great country. So I'm not trying to paint a doom and gloom picture. I'm just saying, as things stand right now, the far radical left, Antifa types, if they are allowed to continue to gain power, we're heading in the wrong direction. And if you look at history as your example, you will see why that is so damn dangerous and scary, and could be the end of everything we know as our current reality if it was allowed to take hold. And I don't think I could possibly say more than that on the subject, to be honest.
Well, Greg, it's what you say makes sense. Right. And if Trump did not get elected, and let's say Bush, another Bush, or a Ted Cruz, or a John Kasich got elected, I would agree with you that we're going to move a little bit to the right. And then when they're done with their term or terms, we're going to move back a little bit to the left. And so the story goes. But that is not what happened. What happened was Trump got elected. He lost the majority vote by over 3 million votes, which is a very, very large difference if you look at past elections. He won by the Electoral College, which is completely out of date. Now, I don't want to. My goal was not to talk about Trump a whole lot this time. The point I'm trying to make is that the conspiracy theorists are a bigger danger to our democracy. And what Trump has allowed, by electing Trump, we have allowed, and he has put into place, including his own fucking children, people that peddle and whether they believe it or not, push those conspiracy theories so that people are afraid to vote for anybody else and even see the truth. So what does that bring? What does that bring with it? It brings with it the Republican agenda, right? So what happened right before Trump is Mitch McConnell, who is a who's happy to push these conspiracy theories himself, stole a Supreme Court seat from Obama. Obama had every right to pick that Supreme Court replacement, and he stole it. And now he's even saying, if something happened now, if Ruth Bader Ginsburg died right now, and they had to pick a seat, they were going to push it through before the election. He's not going to follow the own rule that he made up. That is a direct attack on our institutions. Because people believe these conspiracies and will not listen to the other side because of how it's portrayed they are acting. They will only vote for these people, these monsters who are taking away their individual rights one at a time.
If Obama, real quick, if Obama had the right, if Obama had the right to do that, it would have happened. He didn't have the right to do it. It would have been a political sort of compromise of some sort of. He had been allowed to go forth with that because he did nominate someone. They just didn't allow it to go through. And if the left had been in the same position, they would have blocked it till the end.
No, they wouldn't have.
Absolutely, they would have.
They've been in the same position.
It's a power game.
Absolutely, that's the problem. The left tends to play by the rules when they shouldn't.
Well,
that has never happened. Then the left has never done anything like that. And they've been in positions similar to that. So Obama
clearly didn't have the right to do that, or it would have happened. If he had the power to make it happen, it would have happened. So the fact that he tried to do it is an example of the left tried to get it done. So all I'm saying is that both sides do that. But my larger question for you, based on what you're saying here, is: do you believe that after Trump, there will be someone like Trump, even worse, who comes after, or will we spring back to the left? Because I would think that if we sprung back to the left, a lot of your worry around this would go down significantly. Is that wrong?
This is why this election is so important. If we get 4 more years of Trump, I fear that our rights are going to be taken away to the point where we're not going to have much of a choice. And let me prove my point, because what we are talking about here ultimately is voter suppression. This happens. This is happening in real time, right in front of our face. Republicans gutted the Voting Rights Act, right? So now you have, if you remember the story that came out of North Carolina, this strict North Carolina voter ID law. Let me just read you a quote. The Supreme Court on Monday refused to revive a restrictive North Carolina voting law that a federal appeals court had struck down as an unconstitutional effort to target African Americans with almost surgical precision. Now, at that, take it at that, you're like, oh, well, the system worked. It doesn't, though, because they're still taking away. They're still requiring certain ID laws. They're still targeting African Americans. They just weren't allowed to do it that way. And in fact, the Supreme Court didn't actually make a decision on this. They refused to hear the appeal, which only means that Republicans can take it back through the circuit courts and come up with a different way to present it to the Supreme Court, which we know is majority conservative. So think about that quote. Target African Americans with almost surgical precision. Do you really believe that if we get another 4 years of Trump, and
hold on, real quick, the gutting of the Voting Rights Act,
they get another Supreme Court seat, they're not going to be able to overturn that?
Well, my question, really quick, that the gutting of the Rights Act, what timeline are you talking for the listeners?
We're talking about over the past 10 years they've been working on this. The gutting of the Voting Rights Act is allowing states to require certain voter IDs. So take example for what happened.
Okay, but we finish up. But the reason I asked that was because you had Obama get elected twice, and you had Hillary win the popular vote. So if there was that much voter suppression going on to the level that you're scared about, would those 3 things have happened? The two wins by Obama and Hillary winning the popular vote in the last election, if that voter suppression was really as significant as you say?
It's very significant. It had a direct effect on the race for governor in Georgia. They purged over 1 million voters from the voting rolls. Most of them were Democratic voters.
Oh, you're talking about on the lower levels. On the lower levels, it's much bigger concern.
Governor is not that low of a level.
Lower, I said.
Lower, but not that low. So can we agree that if it's happening at a governorship level, it can certainly happen at a presidential level at some point?
Yeah, voter suppression of any kind is a big problem. Don't get me wrong.
But it's only being done on one side, Greg. That's what I'm saying. These conspiracy theories.
Nothing is only done on one side, Jeff. Nothing. These two are playing the same game.
Listen. It's being done.
If you look at history, it bears out, man.
So what's happening, so our listeners know what I'm talking about, what is happening is Brian Kemp, the elected governor of Georgia, was in charge of the election that he was running for governor. But at the time, his position, I forget what his title was off the top of my head. It's very easy to Google. But part of his job was to be in charge of how the election is run, right? So that was his job. And at the same time, he is running for governor. First of all, is that not corrupt as shit? He should have to recuse himself from that position and let somebody else be in charge of how the election is run. His actions were to remove polling places in areas that were largely of people of color, require voting ID, then close places that gave people voter or state IDs. So he requires state ID to vote, then closes like the DMV, that would be equivalent to a DMV, closes the DMVs in those areas so that people that without cars, very poor, and generally Democratic voters would have to find transportation, public transportation that required all day to get to a place that would give them an ID to then vote, which is virtually impossible because these people can't take an entire day off of work to go get this ID that is suddenly required after voting for years.
So you're saying voter suppression is one of the problems that will keep potentially another Trump, will allow another Trump to get in there, and we won't go back and get an AOC, or we won't go back and get Kamala Harris or the next dynamic person on the left. You just believe that it's possible that chance is gone. Trump is going to take king-like power and take our rights away.
I think it's a real possibility. Look what happened in Florida. It was a very close race. It was a 1% race, but on the ballot, Republicans ended up winning across the board. On the ballot was to restore voting rights to nonviolent felons. Over 1 million people would have had their right to vote restored. Nonviolent felons who serve their time and are free and are working. They should have the right to vote. They are contributing to society. They should have a right to vote. The people of Florida voted in favor of that. Republicans got in control, and they still have not enacted it. So now we have this election coming up. Florida is going to be very close again, and those 1 million people would not get a say. Why? Because they are likely to vote Democrat.
Okay, but why would
these are the tactics that the conspiracy theorists are allowing to happen, because they are so easily manipulated that they will not listen to things that are rights that are actually being taken away and vote for the other side. They will not be not be moved.
So you're saying
that is what's happening.
There's the danger of this conspiracy misinformation, is that they're muddying the water so much that the people aren't going to stand up against this and say this is clearly wrong. That's where you're saying the danger is. Because I'm just going to say, like, correct, even if you take the felons out, the nonviolent felons out, you should still have enough of your populace left over that if we were living in this dystopian regime where rights were taken away, then you would think the result's going to be going to continue to be, all right. Like the Republicans will win every election from now on, and I just don't believe that it's occurring.
Speaking of conspiracy theorists, Greg Myers chimed in. Talk about the perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Well, Greg Myers lost my number somewhere along the line. I was going to try to talk to him about some interesting stories, but he lost my number. So.
Yeah, he's the perfect example of what I'm talking. He will never admit to what is happening, what's right in front of his face. He will always vote Republican no matter what, because he is easily fooled and manipulated, and he acts out of fear. But he peddles those same conspiracy theories that we've been talking about all night long, and it proves it with a comment of see, things haven't changed.
So I want your honest answer, Jeff. Do you think it's possible? Because my prediction is that. Now, if Biden and Kamala Harris win the election, which I don't think is going to happen, but if it does, I could very easily, I mean, Joe's not looking too good these days. I could totally see that transitioning into a Kamala Harris presidential run. If that's not the way it goes, I think our next dynamic person on the left is probably going to be AOC. And I think after another 4 years of Trump, which all our rights are not going to get taken away. He's not going to become the president king, in my opinion.
Here's my hold on. Let me ask you.
But I'm asking for your honest opinion. Do you really think that is like a remote possibility rather than a likely possibility that will bounce back left after Trump is gone in after the second term?
Well, I think politics is so divided right now, where there's such a gridlock in Washington. I think number one, we're going to have to get rid of the filibuster to do anything on either side ever. I don't think I don't see it bouncing back a whole lot, but Trump has proven that he can get I feel myself every single day saying, well, Trump can't do that. And then all of a sudden he does. Like take example for the defunding the U.S. Postal Service. I remember having conversations with buddies of mine, like saying, well, this is, he can't really do that. And he did. Like so he's proving every day that he doesn't give a shit about how things work. And it's proven that our institutions were not as strong as we thought. And he's doing things that are absolutely batshit crazy. And right out in the open, defunding the Postal Service, he admitted this is to block mail-in voting, make this harder to do mail-in voting because it would affect him in a negative way. So, but I have
some would argue that he is fighting fire with fire. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm
bullshit.
saying,
that is complete bullshit.
In your opinion,
why are you talking about fire with fire? Like, why shouldn't people have the right to vote?
Because he has come out and said that he believes that mail-in voting is ripe with opportunity for fraud. Now, whether you believe that
bullshit.
or not,
which I think.
Well, now you say prove a lot, man, but I say there is evidence to believe that there is no reason to believe that there is no reason to believe that it'll increase the fraud. But he's pushing that idea. So once he pushes it, of course, he's going to say, well, now I'm going to take steps to dismantle this because I don't believe that we can have a fair election like this.
But again, he's he's operating on the assumption that it definitely happens. You just said there's no evidence that it does. So I said prove. You said no evidence. Either way, there's no evidence that that would happen. States have been doing it for years. And it works. There's more evidence of voter fraud taking place at the actual poll. Intimidation, closing polling places, so making people wait for 6 to 8 hours in line when they can't take off of work because they're poor and work minimum wage jobs. That's what's actually happening. He's peddling this idea, and people like Greg Myers believe it. There is no evidence that voter fraud takes place at a higher level through mail-in voting. What Trump is doing is actual voter suppression. That's voter fraud, is not allowing people to vote in as many ways as possible to make it easier for them. If you can't take off of work, why can't you mail in your ballot if you feel comfortable doing so?
Well, and just to say it, I also think we should do everything we can to make sure that voter fraud doesn't happen on any level. And so every time we make another platform by which someone can vote in an election, you do have to make sure that system is not ripe for fraud. It's very important that we do that. You can't just say, "Hey, there's never been any problem, so it'll be fine." That's not necessarily true either. So I'm just saying that
voting machines are very easily hacked into. That was proven after the last election.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think you had a question that I jumped all over. Do you remember it?
I forget.
So
my question to you was, well, first of all, I would agree with you. I didn't think a Biden Harris ticket could have won 5 months ago. Things have very much changed since then. Most of the people in the country, and even Republicans, are starting to waver on this. Agree that Trump has handled this pandemic in an absolutely hard, ridiculous way. And they seem to have had enough. Biden is up in double digits nationally. He's leading in every battleground state currently, almost past the margin of error at that point. His lead keeps growing. So you say that he looks terrible. He doesn't look any less terrible than Trump. We've now seen 4 years of Trump bumble his words, talk about crazy shit like windmills cause cancer. People are tiring of it. Old Uncle Joe isn't looking so bad at all.
He's looking back because it looks like they're trotting out an old codger from the home who can barely. He has like mush mouth.
Trump doesn't look any different. Trump looks like a piece of shit. He looks like a deranged lunatic, like an old man pitter pattering around the White House, just saying random shit. So do I think Joe Biden was the best choice? No. Do I think he's worse than Trump? No. Do I think he's more far gone than is he affected by dementia more than Trump? No. They're both old white men who are past their prime.
So we're really calling this election Geezergate.
Geezergate. But I do have a real fear that if Trump gets another 4 years, that door to elect someone, a dynamic person who truly cares, like an AOC, that door is going to close, and it's going to be much harder for her to do so.
The reason I don't see that, Jeff, is if you look at the history go back 50 years even, and you'll see that this balancing act continues to occur. And I would say, let's be hopeful of that, because that does mean that our entrenched government structure, in spite of all its problems, has achieved a level of balance in which nobody can ever take us in a direction too far off perhaps the middle path, the middle way. In closing, and I want both of us to have a chance to do this, but I'm going to take 1 minute and just say, to recap for anyone that's going to vote on the results of this debate, here's what I would tell you. My my agenda here has been simply to say this: in spite of how dangerous misinformation, conspiracy theorists, the alt-right, the provocateurs on both sides, as dangerous as I believe these people are, I think the propaganda level, that conspiracy theorist level, is slotted in a power structure below the overarching ideology. The point I have been debating today is that the power of that overarching ideology controls the propaganda that comes out of the mouth of conspiracy theorists. So for that reason alone, I would say that is your bigger thing to be aware of, to study, to make your own determination on. You might think I'm a total wacko for making the connections I've made, and we can talk about that. But what I'm saying is, this is what I've been pushing. This is what I've been debating, and I'm just saying that power structure wise, the ideology is always sitting atop whatever propaganda is sent out to push the ideology. And for that reason, I would say the biggest fear in my mind are the people, the radical far left, who have come right out and said, "I want to suppress your speech and your thought." Okay, that is about the most dangerous thing you can do, in my mind, to a human being. If there's anything more crucial to being a human being, it's to be able to have your own ideas and to be able to voice them. And for the people out there, those ghouls, those hideous ghouls who want to take it away from you, those are the people you should fear. And anytime you see them getting a foothold of power anywhere in your backyard, you should be really aware of it. You should do your research and do what's possible to speak out against it. And that's really if I was going to defend the point that I've debated, that's the best way for me to sum it up.
And I would ask you, do you feel that your right to vote is a form of speech?
Yes, absolutely, it is.
Then my argument is simple. Your right to vote is being attacked right now. Your speech is being attacked right now, and I believe I've made that clear as to how. What I said is easily confirmed with a cursory search on the internet in your choice of search engines. Republicans cannot win. Republicans have a set of tasks that they want to get done. They want to defund Social Security. They want to take Social Security. They want to take away Medicare. They can't do that because it's not popular. So they have to find other ways to do that. And one of the ways that they do that is by lying, cheating, and stealing to stay in power. And one of the ways they're lying, cheating, and stealing is by taking away people's right to vote. Now, you and I will probably never lose our right to vote. We're never going to get purged from voter rolls because we are white males. But there is a large group, very large portion, and a growing portion of the population that are targeted for this specific reason. And they do this, and the results are clear. 60% of our elected officials are considered Republican, which includes the Tea Party and now QAnon, or will include QAnon after this November election come January 20 when the people change. So those 60% represent 40% of the population of this country. That's not how the founding fathers designed this originally. There was supposed to be equal power spread to represent just about everybody. And again, nothing was going to be perfect. There was always going to be something but that power struggle that you talk about moving back and forth throughout the years, between terms.
I called it a power balance.
Power balance. I'm all for that. I could have dealt with a Mitt Romney for 8 years. I wouldn't have liked it. I could have dealt with a Jeb Bush for 8 years. I wouldn't have liked it. I truly believe we need big change in this country in order to move forward. I don't feel like we've moved forward in a while, like an FDR type move forward. But what the concerns that you're talking about are, talking about 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, the playing field is not the same anymore. We have the internet. The internet has changed the world and made misinformation able to be spread a lot quicker.
Yeah, but that's all information, though, Jeff. All information is quicker. So if you want to be a truth seeker or you want to be a truth promoter, you can get that out just as quick as the bullshit.
It doesn't take hold as quick. We're seeing that.
Well, I did see that's an opinion, though, Jeff.
You have a theory. What we're actually seeing is that misinformation is taking hold faster and replacing the people that used to, like you said, seek truth. by looking at sources,
Well,
reading.
and people are always going to be
experts.
People are people, okay? So the American populace, in a lot of ways, does not like to do a lot of reading, does not like to do a lot of thinking. But look, that's on the American populace to get better, okay? To do more research, to go out there and try. Look, when I hear something that sounds like bullshit to me, and I'm not saying I'm just a normal dude, but when I hear something that doesn't make sense to me, I go and do my own research on it to try to fact check it to see if it was worth a shit or if it was just some nonsense. If you don't do that, that's on you. And you know what? If you're that stupid, you probably don't deserve the same equal say as everybody else. And who's going to run the thing?
But those stupid people affect all of us. That's the problem. Those stupid people would sit down with their families and watch the news. And they would trust the news, and we would trust the news to deliver facts in a way. That's not happening anymore.
So maybe there's our next debate, Jeff. We can debate the idea of whether there should be some kind of an aptitude qualifier, not necessarily your general IQ or your station in life or any of that, but that you know something about the candidates that you're voting for, that you're able to answer on a questionnaire or whatever, that I know this about this person, I know this about this person, I'm making my decision for this reason. If you can't provide that, why do you get a say? Why is that a thing that everybody gets a say, even if you're a blithering freaking moron?
Well, look, now I would argue that you're pushing towards that that crazy alt left thing. Like, I've thought about that too. Don't get me wrong. I've battled with that. Like, why does a stupid person get the same vote as someone who's intelligent, informed, and understands how to fact check and know what's real and fake? I've struggled with that myself.
All I'm saying is the question is a debatable question, and I would say I'm not saying anybody doesn't deserve the right to vote, but adding a qualification on there that, hey, you need to prove some kind of an understanding of what you're voting for, and if you can't do that, you're going to have to sit this one out because you just failed the entrance test to exercise your right to vote. Your right to vote never goes away. It's just in order to exercise. Now it's a whole other debate. Here comes the crazy alt-right conspiracy, because most Republican voters are uneducated white males. They're going to say, well, the people making this test are liberal progressives out to screw Donald Trump. That's what they're going to say. That's have it on both sides.
Even if that isn't true, that's what they're going to say. But I think that's a perfect place to wrap. Greg, I enjoyed this very much. I love these debates.
This was good.
And I don't think any less of you. In fact, I think more of you.
I have a tremendous affection towards you right now, sir.
I have a debate boner. So good thing it's a good thing I'm a master debater.
Oh, God. Oh, by the way, real quick, you played that Two Rows ad in between. I did want to point out for anyone listening to this that has not heard the Two Rows from Ringside podcast, we did actually have we considered a strong privilege on our end to interview Mr. James Harris, the late Kamala, who recently passed away, unfortunately and sadly. But we have had the privilege of having his last interview. So if you haven't checked it out yet and you want to check out Two Rows from Ringside podcast, it's available everywhere. And check out the Kamala episode to hear really the last public statements from the great man. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, we also have, and that's, look, if you've ever liked wrestling, man, you knew Kamala. He was a cool character. And really, I was there for the interview. I got to listen to it when it was happening. He was a really cool dude. So we certainly wish the best for his family. We also have some great topics coming up here, too. We are going to debate the 2020 election coming up. We're gonna have Ashley Jonasy, who was on Moms of Mayhem. She's going to talk about universal health care with us. There's a lot of misinformation about universal health care and how Canadians come to America to get their surgeries. We're going to hear how that's bullshit. There's a lot of things, a lot of great topics that we're going to talk about here coming up. So make sure you tune in. And I also want to bring, I'm seeing in the chat here, Truth Seeker 2, Master Debater 1. I don't know. Let's see how that goes. I want an explanation on this.
I like the looks of those numbers. I like them.
I'm going to add Leah and Mouse to the stream here. What the fuck is going on here? How do we decide this? Who came up with that score?
So me.
And we debated for 2 hours. How did we only get 3 points between the two of us?
Well, to be fair, if you read it, it should. Yes, it does. It says bonus points for you guys.
Gate.
Yes. So Sterner had
1-1, and he got a bonus point for a little quip.
Well, no, wait.
Those are just the bonus points.
Yeah, they're just
bonus points. You got one bonus.
Oh, okay.
We need to factor them in, and I gave them because he said, what was it? Venom. I forget.
Verbal vermin.
Yes, verbal vermin, and then Geezergate.
Okay, so you got-
and you had another one.
We've also got Erica Crumpler in the chat there, bringing some heat to you, Mr. Bergh, saying potentially some sore losing going on
Hey,
there.
well, listen, there's no debate on that. I am definitely a sore loser.
Yeah, he is.
You have pegged me 100%.
What you didn't know was that there were some certain rules written beforehand. Like my wife Abby told us earlier to show her our teats. Okay,
Yes.
and I started to sort of go into it, and I could have earned a bonus point for that if I had been allowed to expose myself, but I didn't get it done. I only got the point for Geezergate and verbal vermin.
Yes,
I'm going to start a conspiracy here that perhaps Erica is a planted Sterner apologist who's planted in the crowd.
You
And
cannot
I
defame
don't
Erica.
feel like that.
Can't do it, man. Don't defame her.
So what was my bonus point for?
I'm looking through the chat right now,
I don't
and
even remember, so it wasn't that good.
it was pretty good. If I find it, I'll let you know.
Pretty
But it was funny. I liked it.
Well,
But as far as
Thank God that I didn't have to debate either of you tonight. You guys are so well prepared.
yeah, agreed.
Well, I won't
Agreed.
say that I won't say that we didn't do a couple lines beforehand to keep the energy up. I'm kidding. I don't do that kind of thing. But we had very spirited about it.
we didn't share any of our notes either.
No.
I had no idea what. Well, I mean, we've talked about this
Before.
we talked about this topic before between the two of us, like just as friends. So I kind of knew where he was coming from. He kind of knew where I was coming from, but I did not see his notes. I didn't know where he was going to go. So
I was up till 5 in the morning.
Yeah, well, look, you got to take my bonus point away. I didn't really come up with that.
But
That's
you
just something I heard.
It's not necessarily because you came up with it. It's just, I'm sure someone else has said verbal vermin too. It was just
I
a
think
zinger.
it was the first one ever.
That was the first ever.
No, Sterner was the first one. I Googled that.
Oh, wow. And Mounts does know 100% of all of the things.
Everything.
That's
So,
good, yeah.
I've heard that.
yeah.
So look, we're just over the 2-hour mark. Let's end it here. Check into well, first of all, if you watch this, I'm sure you're not going to listen to it, but tell your friends that we want to bring the debate to our page so that you can save your friendships with your family and such.
Yeah.
And we really want to hear your thoughts on everything. And look for the show post and feel free to comment on who won. We'll throw out the poll. And like I said, you can trash any of us on here. We're not going to. Well, I'm a sore loser. I'll fight back, but nobody else. But this has been the ever-evolving truth. This has been our first of many face-offs, hopefully, and we will see you next week.
You guys are right. This is being politicized to a heavy degree, but it's not enough for us to say, you guys are bad for politicizing this.
Imagine if these assholes put as much energy into bringing awareness to the disease instead of raging against a fictional work of art that was not vindictive in any way towards people with this disease.
What you just said there about being the slave, it's like, and the way you explained it, you say what to do, I do it, reminds me very much of a military.
That's elite. The player is not elite. We look at them elite because we're jealous of them. Welcome, everybody, to the ever-evolving truth.
It took me 4 pages to realize that it was JE and not JG. I'm like, who the fuck is JG flying on this plane all the time?
But doctors are already subject to malpractice and every other thing they do. So the idea of a doctor being scared to do the right thing medically, I would call that questionable if they have to do this on a regular basis with fear of malpractice suits to begin with.
Yeah, but they're not afraid to go to jail because they made a medical decision.
So that's totally different.
Right. I'll add one thing quick before I go to Mounts, just to respond to that, Leah, based on the argument. The reason it would need to be in there, in my opinion, is because a doctor who might be getting $1,000 under the table or whatever the figure would be, and says, yeah, I do think there was a justified reason for performing this abortion, and I did it for that reason. If you don't hold them to the task of being able to provide, and if they're good doctors and they're doing the right thing, they should be able to very easily provide a medical defense. I'm not saying that they need to go in front of pass some ridiculous set of judgment on this. It's